Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Well, I guess as the title of this video alludes, at the moment, Pokemon investing is hard. It actually is. And I think the reason it's hard is because of how difficult it is, A, to obtain product, but B, more importantly, being able to obtain product at the right price as an investor. There's three, I suppose, things I always talk about when it comes to Pokemon card investing, and that is, buying the right set, buying the right product, and being able to get it at the right price. And sometimes two of those things can fall in line. Like, look at Surging Sparks, for argument's sake. Right product, it is. It's the best main set from Scarlet and Violet we've seen so far with the booster box. It's the best one we've seen. And if you argue against that, that's fine. But in my opinion, it is. And the numbers don't lie. But total set value, top chase cards, popularity towards it. So it's the right set. The right product is a booster box, but finding one at the right price just seems nearly impossible at the moment. So that's what this video is all about. We're going to delve into that into a little bit more detail. Before we do jump into the crux of this video though, I just wanted to give a shout out to today's sponsor. That is the Shiny app. If you don't have the app, I urge you to download it. I'll leave it all in the description of this video. And if you do have the app, please update it because it updates regularly. In case you don't know what it is, the Shiny app is an app where you can store all your sealed and singles Pokemon card collection, among other TCGs. The most important thing from an investor is prices update daily across multiple data sources to give you accurate pricing on your singles and sealed product. Then you can see trends, so as the market moves and price shifts on it, you can see the percentage gains that you're making across individual products and as a whole across your total collection. A cool new feature is you can now filter by set when it comes to Pokemon cards, so you'll have prismatic evolutions right the way down to obviously base set when it first come out and everything in between. Once you click on a set, you can also filter by most expensive card down to cheapest card. So you can look at the top chase cards inside a set and what they're doing. So that is the Shiny app. On to the crux of today's video, which is Pokemon investing is getting hard. And look, I remember this thing that Warren Buffett used to talk about when it comes to investing, which was all about value investing. So buying something that, and he used to talk about its intrinsic value. And look, that's a hard one to put the finger on the pulse with because it's almost like that off Wolf of Wall Street, is them Fugazi. Who knows what the real intrinsic value is? But I guess if you're a seasoned investor like him, you know the feeling of when something feels undervalued or overvalued. And look, we get that same feeling when it comes to Pokemon cards, particularly singles. When something pumps up like crazy and you feel like it's a buyout, you feel like the intrinsic value of that card is too expensive. Like, it's just not worth what the price has pumped it up to be. And look, they can very quickly come back down to earth. And probably one of the best examples of that recently would be, the Umbreon V alternate art from Evolving Skies. Or was it? Yeah, that was the one. So just the regular V, obviously not the V Max. It got pumped up to like ridiculous heights, as did a lot of old arts. And all of them came crashing back down to earth. So, that intrinsic value that Warren Buffett was talking about, I think you can transfer to the Pokemon card world. And when he's talking about buying his stocks and buying them in that value investing, he typically talks about feeling like he's buying them for 20% or so under what their proper market price should be. And that could come down to years of experience, but that's, I think, one of the difficulties we're having in the Pokemon card investing space at the moment is everything just feels so damn dear at the moment. If you look at everything from all the singles across Scarlet and Violet, pretty much, like if you look at all the top 10 hits from every set we've got from Scarlet and Violet so far, they're all pretty much up, like literally up over the last week, over the last 2 weeks, fortnight, over the last month. Everything's just up, and some of them considerably. Like, look at Bubble Mew from Paldean Fates. Look at Charizard from Paldean Fates. Look at Latias, Hydreigon from Surging Sparks. In the last week alone, they've pumped up considerably, like 20, 25, 30%. Bubble Mew, I think, is up nearly 40% in the last fortnight. Like, when we talk about buying something at a decent price, whether it's singles or sealed, and full well I don't really delve into singles at all because I just think they're so volatile. There's so many trends. You don't know who's spending money on them. Like, you don't know who's buying 50 or 100 at a time to send off to get graded, and then because there's such an appetite for graded cards, and then selling them off as PSA 10s, 9s, and a couple of 8s if they achieve them. You don't know who's doing that. So you don't know who is unwillingly, perhaps, unwillingly manipulating is maybe the right word, unwillingly manipulating the market price of some singles. That's why I don't get involved. I buy what I like, I put it in the binder, and I'm happy for it to sit there. If it goes up in value, great. If it doesn't, I don't care. But when it comes to sealed, on the other hand, that's where it's at for me. And sealed at the moment seems extremely expensive. And look, there's a few reasons for that, of course. Obviously, we've had Pokemon, far out, what's the app called? Is it Pokemon Pocket? Surely it is, isn't it? Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, which I'm sure someone will do, because everyone always corrects me if I say something wrong. I'm sure it's Pokemon Pocket. We had that come out, which has drawn, more people into the hobby. Where, just over 15 months or so ago, or a touch more, we've had 151 come out, which brought so many more people into the hobby. We're coming into holiday season where everything's hot, everyone's buying. And the other probably big reason is we've actually had some really, really strong sets just come out. We've had Surging Sparks come out, and we've got Prismatic Evolutions in the pipeline, which is going to be a crazy EV-based set. So all of these factors together have just created the perfect storm for, I suppose, attention, exposure, money being sent into the Pokemon card hobby, which is really driving up the price of sealed products. Now, this is where you've got to ask yourself, if you're playing the long game and not the short game and expecting to make gains in 6 months, the long game is you should sort of know about the intrinsic value of sealed Pokemon card products. So I guess the question you've got to ask yourself is now a good time to buy Scarlet and Violet Pokemon booster boxes when the price is so damn high on them? And look, this is a double-edged sword, because if you don't buy them now, this could well be the cheapest they're ever going to be. Like Twilight Masquerade at $155 US. It's a very solid set in my opinion. It's got a strong chase card in Greninja, it's got good depth, and it's got a couple of nice trainers inside there. At $155 US, will this booster box ever be cheaper? And the answer is it could well be. And I'll talk to you about a few factors as to why it could well be in the coming 6 months. But it might also never get reprinted. And 155 could well be the cheapest we'll ever see it. But I guess that's the question you really need to ask yourself is this the best time to be buying Scarlet and Violet booster boxes? Now, my opinion on Sword and Shield I don't think will change. I would be very surprised, and look, we could see a very smidgenal or a very marginal, that's a good word I made up then, smidgenal. We might see a very marginal dip come across some of the booster boxes because of that holiday period hype. Like, we could see come, March next year, things like Fusion Strike or, Lost Origin even come off the boil or stagnate for a while and not see that growth we've seen. But I don't think we're ever going to see Sword and Shield booster boxes cheaper again. Like, their price, I think, if they come off the boil or popularity comes off the boil, I think now that most of them in the hands of the private market, that floor of the market will sort of be set and held, in my opinion. I don't think we'll see a retraction much. But if we're talking solely about Scarlet and Violet and investing into these modern sets while they're sort of, at their all-time low or the lowest they might possibly ever be, especially compared to in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, is now the right time. And look, with all that popularity that I was talking about, that puts upward pressure on pricing. Just look at Surging Sparks. That's probably the best example. That booster box is north of $200 US now, and it's been out, a month? Not a month and a half? Like, it's been a long time since we've seen something like that. I don't even think Evolving Skies went that quick. It quickly rose to $200 US, but I don't think it was even that quick. And now, I'm not saying Surging Sparks is a better set than Evolving Skies, because in my opinion, it's certainly not. But the demand for it seems to be just as high or even possibly more at the moment with the amount of people coming into the hobby. Like, it's just at an all-time high. So this is where you've got to ask yourself, come maybe February or March or April next year, or even coming into, the US's or the Northern Hemisphere's summer in the US and Canada and in UK and Europe over there, and into the Southern Hemisphere's winter down here in Australia, of course, will prices well and truly come off the boil? Because if you look at that cycle, that's typically when things get a little bit cheaper. And now, to give you the best example, back in June, July this year in Australia, you could buy most modern Scarlet and Violet booster boxes I'm talking base set, Paldea Evolved, Obsidian Flames, Paradox Rift, Temporal Forces for 160 Australian dollars if you did a tiny bit of Google searching. That's about 105 to 110 US. Pretty much all of them were at that price. Now, fast forward literally 6 months, and you're not even scratching the surface of those prices in Australia. I think if you're lucky, the cheapest you might find something, Obsidian, Paldea, Temporal, is maybe 200, 210 Australian, which is like, 140 to 150 US. So prices in a 6-month period are pretty much or very close to, like a 40% uptick in price. And I don't think a great deal has changed in that time other than demand for the hobby. So what you've got to ask yourself is, like I said, come February, March, April, or even into, June or July next year, if we see a retraction in the demand for the hobby because holiday period's over, because Pokemon Pocket's not as popular, because attention's going towards the new sets like Prismatic and Team Rocket, are we going to see some of these earlier Scarlet and Violet booster boxes come off the boil a little bit? Are we going to see people that have maybe gone in too hard over the holiday period and spent too much money? And look, I'm not into buying stuff on credit cards, but if you do, or other people have they maxed out cards? And are we going to see some sort of, I wouldn't say dumping of the product, but retraction in the buying of the product and perhaps a few more in the market, which will put some downward pressure on pricing? And look, I'm not saying now is a bad time to buy because, look, like I said before, this could well be the cheapest you'll ever see any of these booster boxes, so it's a risk. But I think that's something you've really got to ask yourself. Pokemon investing isn't easy at the moment. It was easier 6 months ago when prices were cheap. And what's really, really funny is this real herd mentality that humans get stuck into. And I've talked about this before, but it's like when they're cheap and no one's buying them, people are like, oh, no one's buying them. They're not popular. Yeah, they're cheap. I won't buy them. And then all of a sudden when, Surging Sparks hits 180 a box, 190 a box, Twilight hits 150, people are going, these things are going to the moon. I better hop on the train and just spend. And that's put more upward pressure on the price. And what do you know? Surging Sparks is over $200. Twilight Masquerade's over $150. And all it is that herd mentality pumping money into the product. So, when you're talking about Warren Buffett and buying something that perhaps feels undervalued, that's when you should be doing your buying. When, not all the attention and all the money is pouring towards something that puts this upward pressure on price and raises it so quickly. That's arguably the worst time to buy. You should be buying when it's at the cheapest. Remember that saying, right set, right product, right price. And look, you could say in the grand scheme of things, Michael, I'm holding my booster boxes for 10 years. Or I get heaps of emails, but Michael, I'm holding my booster boxes for 15 years for when my 7-year-old graduates college or university and, that's their investment fund. Look, and that's fine. You could go, I don't care where I buy, Paldea Evolved at 135 US dollars or whether I have to pay 150 because in 15 years, that ain't going to matter to me. Okay, fair enough. But for the initial spurt of a booster box, like I was saying, 6 months ago when you could get them for 105 US dollars here in Australia converted, that's a lot cheaper than spending 155 on Twilight Masquerade or spending 130 on Paradox or Temporal. That's very close to a 25% or 30% difference in purchase price, which is a fair bit. And when Warren Buffett was talking about feeling like he's buying something for 20% under market value from a share perspective, that's the best time to buy. So just keep all those things in mind when you're looking at investing in sealed Pokemon products. I'm Michael. This is PokeOz. Catch everyone next time.